Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Beyond Beliefs. This one took a while to plan because of our guest. First of all, we've got our co host, Artie. Hi there, Artie.
Hi, Peter.
So you're stoked, aren't you? Um, well,
The excitement is overwhelming.
it
I don't know how to react.
it is
I'm a little panicky. My palms are really sweaty. I'm really excited to be here. I just want to thank you.
okay.
It's good to be with you again, Peter.
Great. Okay, so our guest for today is someone that took a while to set up. Our guest today is standing for truth. He's not going to be on camera, so we'll have to deal with that. But standing. So for people who do not know you, do a brief introduction of yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, Artie. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a long time in the making, but I think the anticipation will be worth it. Thanks for inviting me on your show. You have great production value here. That opening got me pumped. I was feeling a little tired, but I tuned into your opening and I'm like, here we go. I don't even need a coffee. So for anybody who doesn't know me, I have a channel, Standing for Truth, where we discuss a variety of topics. It kind of started out mainly as creation versus evolution, me putting out clips here and there. And then I decided to learn how to work Google Hangouts and jump into all these discussions and debates. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a wild ride. Now there's a few of us that help run the channel. And we do a lot of debates on different topics. I do a lot of moderating and hosting as well. So when I mod or if I do interviews, I try and be as neutral as possible. My atheist guests seem to be quite happy with it. We just had a big debate with Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal and Ken Hovind over on the channel, and one with Jackson Weed and Dr. Kevin Anderson. Erika Gutsick Gibbon helped me moderate that one. So we're putting out some good debates. Therefore, even if you don't agree with my views, but you really like good debates on these kind of topics, go hit like and subscribe, because we've got a lot more that I've scheduled in the next month or two that I think people are really going to enjoy. So, Peter, thanks for having me on.
Okay, so as a designer, obviously I do have a few things. You should need to figure out how to set up your screens before you go live, so all is working and you don't have to adjust all those things. But that might be my designer's OCD. I don't know. I
Just
I
the OCD.
I've got a bit of OCD myself. So I totally understand what you're saying. I think the debate you're referring to is I think it was the Dr. Kevin Anderson one. I'm not very techie, so I've got a producer who praise I am that works all that stuff. So he clicked live a little prematurely that day. So he was gonna get a raise, and because of that, unfortunately, the raise was taken away. So unfortunately. But he's doing a good job now, so I might reconsider that raise again.
okay.
But
So
Peter, thanks for the advice.
for today, we do have a new tool. People who've been working with StreamYard already know it, where you can put up a comment from the side chat on screen. That wasn't available in OBS. It still isn't, except that we do have that. We do have that option, so I can just click on a message, and then, like here, it comes on screen. Randolph Richardson says, "If SFT, your guest, is in need of atheists, join the debates. Please let them know they can contact me on Twitter or email president@canadianatheist.ca." So that's our new tool.
Awesome.
We can
I
we
love
can
that.
actually, if people have questions, we can put them up on screen. I'll be able to highlight those in the chat, and once they've been shown, I can highlight them in a different color, so even an idiot like me can remember what did I show and what didn't I show. It's probably one of the neatest tools that I have available at the moment, and I'm hoping to get a little bit more interaction from the side chat. We're still working on where people can actually applause or wolf whistle, and that will automatically come up in the show. Not sure if that's going to happen, but we're trying to work our way towards it. My main question for you at first, Standing. So, can you tell us what exactly do you believe, and most important, why do you believe it? Hello?
Peter, my apologies. I was on mute there. I did not run away. I promise you. So,
Okay.
what do I believe and why do I believe it?
Mm-hmm.
Good question. I'll make it short and pippy, I guess. So I believe in young earth creation. I believe that the Bible is scientifically accurate. I actually take it as far as believing that we can look at the account in Genesis, especially regarding human origins, and make successful retrodictions and predictions. And since the gold standard of science is making testable predictions, then that is one of the reasons that I hold to the position that I do. It's not a position that I've always held to. I certainly did not hold to young earth creation. I was a Catholic, so I wasn't a biblical creationist, I guess one could say. Through school and through college, there was a conversion after the fact. For a number of reasons, we can, I don't want to drag it on too long, but we can get into those a little bit later if you'd like.
Okay, but so, what I was thinking about, did you grow up as a Christian, or did you become a Christian later in life, and did you change positions at any time, and if so, why?
Right, yeah. I figured that would be another question you'd ask, therefore I'd save the longer answer for this question. So yes, as I kind of hinted at, I grew up Catholic, did my baptism as a baby and confirmation, reconciliation, Eucharist, all the goodies. Up until about high school, when I began to have questions in religion class. I can still remember it to this day. I'm 31 now. But when I was in it must have been grade 11 religion class, I had questions about the Bible, especially Genesis. I'd ask questions about the Adam and Eve story, the Noah story, the Moses story, and typical Catholic teaching. I know my teacher would state that, these are all symbolic, these are all allegory, they're not real historical accounts. At the time, I thought, that seems kind of like a cop-out, because the stories do seem like, it's purporting a historical narrative of some kind. Therefore, I kind of fell away from the faith. I fell away from Catholicism, went to college, studied there just kind of as an agnostic. Never an atheist, still believed in God, still believe that, still believe portions of the Bible. I just didn't believe all of it, I guess, based on what I was taught in religion class in the Catholic school I went to. But once I started studying, I guess, the other side and the other positions, because all I really knew was Catholicism. I didn't even know there was Protestantism. I didn't know what young earth creation was. So when I first got converted, it was through debates, believe it or not, that were mainly consisting of like John Lennox and Richard Dawkins, William Lane Craig, these types of apologists. And then eventually I made my way to young earth creation, where then it made sense. Okay, these stories, I feel either have to be taken as a historical narrative, or it's probably just inaccurate. That's kind of everything in a nutshell. Thanks, Peter.
Okay, so would we be talking about evolution? You devolved. I mean, from John Lennox and then going from there to young Earth creationism. I don't know. So, but what convinced you? What convinced you that a Genesis is to be taken literally?
Good question. So typically when you look at your John Lennox debates, like I highly recommend his debates with Richard Dawkins. Those are a couple of my favorite. It's mainly focused on like the origins of the universe, the implausibility of the origins of life, as well as topics regarding morality, the resurrection. historical accuracy of Jesus. So these helped me realize Christianity is true. But it didn't get much into like the origins of life, common ancestry, is everything related? Is there, independent origins, these types of things. So that's when I kind of moved in another direction and started watching discussions, debates, and lectures on intelligent design, which rejects evolution, but also accepts the deep time. And then eventually made my way to the young earth creation, which obviously rejects the deep time and rejects the universal common ancestry, of course. So where I was going with that was, the first reasons that started me off in questioning evolution were after college. So in college, we were taught the theory of evolution. We were taught about human evolution, the hominins, for example, the Darwin and his history. I kind of I believed it. I didn't really have a problem with it. Once I got into, when I started working in the career that I went to school for, I was dealing with a lot of disease, a lot of illness, and I was directly involved in a lot of the treatments and things like this. And I realized that what we're looking at here is, like you said, devolution. That those very mechanisms that I was taught took that single-celled like ancestor into a whale over billions of years, mutations as the driving force, the origin of all genetic diversity. I realized from personal experience, mutations are leading to disease, destruction, degradation, pain, suffering. And I thought, I got to look more into this because, for example, by the time you're 60, I don't know how old you are, Peter. You don't look 60. I feel like we went to high school together. Now, by the time you're 60, you have about 40 to 50,000 new mutations in every single cell that you did not have at birth. Now, when people say standing,
that would be in 2 years for me.
You look good. Whatever you're doing, keep it up, Peter. Let me know your secrets after the discussion. So when people say, Stanley, you look a little different today. You look a little tired. I say, I'm the most mutant today than I've ever been. I've got the most mutations per cell than I've ever had. Per cell division, you gain 3 new mutations. So just dealing with all the disease associated with mutations on a personal level. I mean, we're not even talking about a population level, the ones that are passed on through the germ cell lines. This is what started me on the journey of questioning whether or not these mechanisms are actually capable of driving evolution. So that, once again, that's like an hour-long explanation formulated in a couple-minute response. Good question, though, Peter.
Okay, but so here's the thing. If anything, that would lead me to evolution, because obviously the things that cause illnesses, viruses and stuff like that, they will evolve and get better at attacking our bodies. So that would only confirm evolution, not the opposite in any way, shape, or form. And as someone in the medical profession, you should know that the theory of evolution is used to create new medicine to cure people. So if it wouldn't work, then how is it so important in modern medicine?
Good questions, very good points, Peter. You're obviously educated on this topic, which leads to a good, intelligent discussion on it. See, the thing is to change from a fish to some kind of amphibian and to a reptile and eventually a mammal and a human. Okay, this is going to require mutations that are beneficial. Now, oftentimes when I have discussions with people of the opposing side, they'll say, listen, beneficial mutations, it's very context dependent, because these mutations are environmentally dependent. Maybe they're deleterious and negative in one area, and they are positive in another area. But to truly get your single-celled like ancestor into all the life we see today, you are going to need new, novel, and meaningful information, because the evolutionists will often say, there's a trade-off. Yeah, we see a lot of loss. Yeah, the majority of mutations, typically even the beneficial ones, are reductive, but it's those one in a million that are beneficial enough, that add enough information that can counterbalance the loss due to all the other accumulating mutations. And what you said about like vaccines or antibiotics, for example, typically you're looking at what's called operational science. So yeah, we're using science in the real time, right? Science means to know. What do we know? Well, we know that we can do science today to develop antibiotics, to develop vaccines, but doing that type of science and that result in those types of medical advancements has nothing to do with the theory of universal common descent. Because typically, and I think you'd even agree, biological evolution just means a change in allele frequency in populations over time.
Which is exactly
what allele frequency
exactly what you just described.
Doesn't automatically mean that, you know, banana plants, whales, and humans are all related through common ancestry. So antibiotics, the field of medicine, a doctor performing surgery, they're not thinking about their relationship with a pine tree while they're doing that, while they're doing those fields in science. So it's a false equivalency is what I'd say.
Do you think other pine trees think about their relationships with pine trees?
Pine trees thinking about relationship with their pine trees?
Other pine trees.
Other pine trees?
Anything, frankly. It's just kind of a ridiculous comment that I know where it came from, but it's it's silly.
My point is somebody who believes in universal common ancestry, it's not going to make them be able to, like somebody in the medical community, it's not going to lead to better scientific advancement when it comes to medicine, vaccines, antibiotics. Even antibiotics, when you introduce an antibiotic into the body, typically the bacteria are losing pre-existing functional systems in order to adapt. Those bacteria are now weaker than the previous population. So everything
the ones that survive are the weaker ones.
Right. So oftentimes bacteria,
Clearly.
It's well known. You can read it in the Lenski experiment.
No, diseases are doing nothing but getting easier to recover from. I mean, that's obviously true, even in the 6,000 years that you believe we've been around. That diseases just get weaker and weaker over time.
I think that Standing, you got the question wrong. So the ones
I have a specific thing in mind that I'd like to see how you address it.
Let me just respond real quick.
Would you recognize sickle cell anemia as being hereditary?
Sickle cell anemia. Okay, yeah, we can talk about the sickle cell anemia. I just want to say one last thing about
quickly. Would you recognize that as being hereditary?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. It's due to a mutation that can be passed on.
Sure.
So,
it's not
with the bacteria, and we can talk about sickle cell anemia. That's I love that subject as well. But the famous Lenski is a long-term experiment on bacteria. It's actually demonstrated nothing more than reductive evolution, because what we're finding most of the time with bacteria is that they're knocking out pre-existing genes.
If it's alive after all this time, it's obviously fit, which is essentially what is necessary in order for something to exist. And that's kind of always been the case according to evolution. By your estimation, there's a god whose fickle finger is just kicking animals off the planet at its own whim. Is that
what's your
with dinosaurs?
Because you said fit,
decided that the dinosaurs could no longer live where they were living with the people.
First off, I noticed you said fit. So if you think it all has to do with fitness, like what would be your best definition of fitness?
That which is best able to live under the circumstances.
Yeah, I'd say that is what is best adapted to survive in its environment while the environment is changing. So,
right. So I would say, and many would agree with me, that the best definition of fitness overall is total functionality. So, for example, yes,
many people would agree with you. I'm not one though.
You don't agree that the best definition? Are you going to go on record to say that the best definition of fitness is not total functionality?
Yes, no. I am going to go on record with that. I'm confident that there is a definition that is better than total functionality, because total functionality applies to a car, and at what level is it functional?
Right. So
I would say I would.
so my point is,
Hold on, I would. I
well,
would
here,
go.
let me just address that point, and then you guys can
Oh,
talk as much as you
well,
want.
let me interject this because total functionality. I mean, everything alive is functionally is functioning totally. Whether or not it is beneficial to them is irrelevant. It is functioning. You're functioning. I'm functioning. Pretty much everything on the planet is functioning. If it wasn't, it would be dead.
So here's what I mean by that. So for example, as I was kind of discussing the Lenski experiment, how they're finding out that there is some really good adaptations that's being observed. Now, so that means there's an increase in fitness in a very narrow sense, okay? But overall, they've discovered that these bacterial populations are losing genes short term. It's long-term degeneration. The bacteria themselves have actually shrunk in functional genome size. So to make it understandable for like the audience, it's kind of like, and I use this example because we just did this in our new house. So if we want to get a bigger room, for example, you know, we can knock out a pre-existing wall. And we did that. We knocked in our dining room. We wanted to make it a little bit bigger, so we knocked down the interior wall. Would we then say that we built the house by knocking down the walls? Of course not.
Would you say that it was less functional because you knocked down that wall?
It's now had a gain of function in
it's had a gain of function.
Purpose.
So knocking down a wall wasn't deleterious. It was a good thing because you decided that was a good thing.
No, so I always point out that evolutionists typically look at the phenotype when they actually need to be looking at the genotype. So in this, I don't want us to constantly talk over each other. So let me just finish my point, then you can talk as long as you want. So we got a bigger room by knocking out a pre-existing wall, yes. But this is not how we built the wall, and this is not how we built the house. Now, when it comes to organisms, bacteria, for example, yes, we can get some genuinely nice changes by knocking out genes and functional systems. But this is all a downhill process. That's why when evolutionists oftentimes point to disease, mutations, and say, this is what you believe your God has created. Well, the biblical creation model suggests that we started at the top, and now that we've been going down ever since. Mutations accumulate per generation in the germ cell line. We're degrading, and this is exactly what we'd expect based on the Genesis account of the fall. And this is exactly what we see in 99.9% of the mutation-related changes in organisms. This is what we see in the Lenski experiment. So go ahead.
No, I'd much prefer to continue to listen to you say these things. I think this is fun.
So I'm guessing that there's no rebuttal to that. So
hold on. Before we get to a rebuttal, we do have a few questions from the side chat. I'm going to pull it up. God Hates Us All says, can you ask SFT what his educational background level is?
Well, we went over that in the pre-stream, and I don't like to get overly personal when I'm live. So I think it's the arguments that matter, and not background. But I believe my educational background does give me pretty good service to discuss things like mutations, disease, the result of mutations. So that'd be my answer.
Okay.
I don't have any doubt that he's operating from a base of knowledge. My bigger concern is that he's making judgments about good and bad as a human based on emotions, and that's not how science gets done anywhere.
Yeah, we also have. I want to get through a few of the questions because
it's your show.
We already have quite a few in the live chat. So the following one is from Amiga Nuts, and he asks. He does realize there are mechanisms to repair cellular damage.
Right. Good point. So I always point to DNA repair mechanisms and the redundancy that we find in our genome, even the retrotransposons, for example. So those things, as we know, natural selection works in the short term. Now, these forward-thinking mechanisms like DNA repair mechanisms and redundancy, I mean, in computer code, redundancy is a good thing, and it's a good thing in our genomes too. So these are types of mechanisms we see in our genetic code of all living organisms that require forward thinking. So my question to any of you guys is what type of evolutionary process evolves and builds that which requires forward thinking? Do you guys have any answer to that one? out of curiosity?
The kind that is judged to have to exist. The claim in itself is just malformed at the onset. What kind of evolution?
No, what type of evolutionary process can build that which requires forward thinking? For example, when an evolutionist would look at a car and they see a spare tire in the back seat, they'll say, or in the back of the car, they'll say, "Oh, look at this evidence for bad design. Look at this redundancy." No, if you get a flat tire, that spare tire.
I think I can answer. I think I can answer that because it all comes down to what makes you better to survive. And in case of the humans, it's where we evolved the brain we could think, but a lot of the things are still based on survival. So and we're a social species, so that's all of those things are implemented in how we think and what we think. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the concept of pareidolia, which evolved from us being apes living in a tree and being able to spot an enemy, even if we didn't have enough visual information to see whether or not there was an enemy there. So it is all an evolutionary way of survival, and in humans that was perfected so we can actually think, and we what you would call forward thinking. I don't know if that's a legitimate concept, but it is all based on our survival.
Well, I do appreciate that well thought out, educated response, Peter, because my issue with it though would be that natural selection, as we know, as I said earlier, it acts in the short term. Therefore, these long-term type mechanisms that would require forward thinking, which I understand that you question if that's a valid term, but that is exactly what redundancy and DNA repair mechanisms are.
That is what
I don't want to lose my train of thought every time.
I'd rather you not say the same thing twice when you know we have a problem with it.
Well, no, I'm not going to ask him the same question twice. I'm going to say, if you want to hold to that answer, no, I'm going to accept your answer, but I'm going to say that you are now giving a mind to evolutionary mechanisms such as natural selection.
You're demanding it by saying that it has direction and that it has purpose and that there's forethought, and that's none of that is material. All of that is an opinion that you've offered based upon your conclusions about what is good and bad, regardless of whether or not they are. Your standard for good and bad seems to be based upon your standard rather than a random standard that you might not be familiar with. And I hate to say that you're operating as though you have all knowledge of the universe, but you're kind of acting like you have all knowledge of the universe.
No, I definitely don't have all the knowledge of the universe.
Where do these judgments about what is good and bad come from without you actually?
Well, and that's why I always point out the fact that beneficial mutations, when evolutionists say that they're context dependent, environmentally dependent, I agree with that. That's why instead of asking for specific examples of, information adding mutations, I typically like to get to the root. And I told this to Dr. Dan Stern-Cardinal. I think he agreed. The question is, yes, there's a trade-off. Is the trade-off sustainable? Before we even get to anything like that, on the forward thinking, even with epigenetics, we're just a simple chemical switch that what it does, it activates a gene that already has the pre-existing function built in to adapt to various environments. We now see rapid adaptive change that evolutionists will often point to and say, look at this is macroevolution before our very own eyes, but yet all it is epigenetic switches that are turned on. We have millions and millions of switches in our genetics just ready to be turned on or off depending on the environment. Therefore, a lot of these changes are not even related.
Hold on. Can I interject for a bit? Because
Peter, it's your show. Yeah, whatever you want to say, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you said we see macroevolution happening before our eyes. We have. It is confirmed. We not only have seen this in the lab, but we also seen it happen in nature. So that's not even an issue. And I know young Earth creationists will define macroevolution different from what scientists say it is, because in science macroevolution is just evolution
At or above the species level?
above and beyond the species level, and
Right.
those
No, I agree with that.
those have been observed. One thing that I do want, it is great because I've seen a lot of debates with you talking about evolution. First of all, I don't think that I'm qualified to talk in depth about the topic. Artie's drinking beer, so obviously he's not.
Hey, listen,
qualified.
we're here to have a good time. No
But-
reason for it to get heated.
I also don't, having watched all those debates, I also don't think that you're especially qualified to talk on the subject. So I would like to rein it back.
Well, Peter, don't
to-
slap and run. Peter, don't slap and run.
No,
You just admitted that you're not qualified to talk about these issues. So I'm guessing, I'm just making a prediction that when you and this isn't to be insulting or an ad hominem, but when
No.
you're watching these debates and we're talking about that which is kind of technical, I'm just going to make a prediction that it's oftentimes going over your head. So therefore, you're not in the position to judge the debate because you just admitted you're not very qualified.
That's really ironic
it's-
coming from somebody who's deciding what is good and bad without actually using the word deleterious in any way. It's not necessarily good or bad, and it's got forethought. So that's hold
on. Hold on.
If you want to imply evolution has a mind,
what I'm
go
saying
ahead.
is,
That's too
what I'm
you're not
saying
even
is,
implying.
what I'm saying. Hold on.
You
What
haven't
I'm
even
saying-
answered any of the questions.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I need to clarify because it has to. When I say I'm not qualified is I did not have an education in this field, which doesn't mean that I haven't learned. One of my real good friends is in the side chat, James Downard.
Yeah, we've debated many times.
I've learned a lot from James. I've learned a lot from Jackson, and still do. Arn Ra is one of my go-to people when it comes to getting some explanations. So I am still learning about the topic. That doesn't mean that I'm qualified to talk in depth about this topic. The other thing is the title of our show is Beyond Beliefs. So I don't think that evolution is a belief system. So it doesn't actually fit our title.
It depends what you mean by evolution, though.
But what I would be more interested in is going back to where your justification comes from, which is the Bible. The Bible doesn't mention evolution anywhere. The Bible doesn't even make room for evolution, where we know that at least mutations are a fact. You acknowledge this already. So that would be in direct conflict with the Bible, with where God created everything and it's done from there. So what I'm more interested in is, what is your justification for there being a God? Because that's the part that I have trouble with.
Good question. Real quick, because I definitely don't want to leave a couple of things you said hanging. I do believe that evolution, if by evolution you mean just a simple change in allele frequencies and populations over generations, that's science. That's not a belief system. We see that. A lot of the examples of the macroevolution you're referring to, all it is now is it's just epigenetic. Epigenetics is just the science term for chemical genetic switches that flip genes on and off, as I was talking about. Basically, it's the scientific study of gene expression. So those rapid adaptive events you're seeing, it's all based on forward-thinking mechanisms. If you guys want to imply that evolution has a mind, go ahead. It's not science.
You just used the word forward-thinking and then applied it to us.
Yeah,
forward-thinking mechanism.
It's not
when you see these rapid adaptive events.
That's
where they
your
have
thing. Describing a thing based upon a judgment that you have made
requires forward-thinking.
It means exactly dick.
Yeah,
listen. You may have a fascination with that word, but not myself. So let me ask Artie a question then. If he thinks mutations are the driving force for all evolutionary change that's going to take his single-celled ancestor into a whale over billions of years, if we know that on a personal level we inherit hundreds of thousands of somatic cell line mutations that ultimately result in our death, aging, disease, and then about 100 of those accumulate from generation to generation through the germ cell lines, most of them being deleterious. Artie, answer this simple question. What type of natural selection can you present us with today that can rid the populations of organisms, let's focus on humans, of so many deleterious mutations that are pouring into our genetics and leading to thousands of new diseases that are documented every year? Go ahead.
I don't.
I'm going to say the same processes that got us to this point.
Yeah.
What processes are those?
Oh no, you didn't ask for that. Now that's a second question.
Can I?
You saying the same processes
Hold on.
Time
Where
out. We are today.
Time out. Time out.
You asked what process. I gave you an answer. Now
Time.
You want to ask the second question because you didn't like it.
Time out. I want to rein it back. I want to rein it back. So standing and this is not an insult, but until you get your Nobel Prize in disproving evolution, I don't think. Well, no, I don't think.
Do you guys ever get embarrassed of using the same like Nobel Prize?
Well, hold on. I just
Artie's answer was literally the same process that got us where we are today.
Standing,
real good intelligent answer there.
Standing.
Yep, okay.
Standing. Listen to me.
The
topic of.
Maybe you should have got somebody a little bit more intelligent in here to discuss.
Yeah, that's what he should have done.
Standing. Can I point to the title of the show, which is Beyond Beliefs, where we will be talking about beliefs, where I think that evolution is not a belief system, so we can continue talking about a topic that's completely irrelevant to the topic of this show. And I know you will. That's where your passion lies. You want to talk about evolution. I want to talk about a belief system, because when it turns out that your God doesn't exist, all your problems, all your problems, all your assertions are going to be mute. That there's nothing there. So what I'm interested in is, why do you think there's a God? I mean, I am 100% convinced that the fact that you believe in a God doesn't rely on evolution being true or not, because you grew up a Catholic, and we know that in the Catholic belief system, evolution is accepted. So I don't think that is a major thing when it comes to the God belief, and that is the part that I'm interested in. All of the other things talking about evolution, there are thousands of streams already on YouTube where you discuss this. So why rehash it here and get us a show that is just a copy of what you can find somewhere else? I'm interested in a different topic.
Peter, I've got kind of a related question. I hope this kind of, if nothing else, provides a bridge. Standing out of curiosity, how many animals do you say got off the ark?
How many animals do I say got off the ark? God probably sent maybe 4,000 to 6,000 different kinds of animals on the ark that would have speciated into the hundreds of thousands we see today.
So speciation happened so quickly over the last, when did it stop happening?
No, speciation events, like we just seen a rapid speciation event on the Galapagos Islands with Darwin's finches. Shifts from heterozygosity to homozygosity.
I don't think we can actually say that we are gaining species at a rate that is even remotely similar to what you've just demanded happened after the ark.
Well, the types of mechanisms that actually lead to speciation depend on whether or not those genetic differences, those DNA differences, that would obviously be, when we're looking at recombination that shuffles up these DNA differences, if they are already there from the start, that can lead to rapid speciation in just a few generations. But evolutionists, they say that the origin of all DNA differences is the result of mutation. That's why they believe speciation takes a long time.
So when we see a point where, okay, again, out of curiosity, is your suggestion then that your God created this mechanism such that the flood was 4,000 years ago? Is that right?
4,500.
Okay, 4,500 years ago, and then sometime in the next, how quickly would you say the dinosaurs died off?
So a few questions there. So
Well, no, to a point, but I'm
so
just
I believe,
dependent upon how you answer these questions.
so I believe that God would have created Adam and Eve and the created kinds heterozygous. I have no reason to believe that they would have had no DNA differences, because when God said be fruitful and multiply, would he have meant that to be carried out through cloning? So I believe that God would have front loaded Adam and Eve with pre-existing functional DNA differences that through the processes of recombination and just fragmentation of genetic diversity could actually explain the origin of every single shade of skin we see today. But this hypothesis, the created heterozygosity hypothesis, this will also apply to the created kinds. Therefore, just through the reshuffling of their genetics, through mutation can add a few new alleles and some genetic diversity, but mainly the adaptation and the speciation would be due to isolation, inbreeding, recombination, gene conversion, kind of the same mechanisms that the evolutionists look to, but the difference is those DNA differences have been built into the organism, which makes testable predictions on DNA function.
So they were built in to happen very rapidly, where we went from a few thousand, less than 10,000 animals, less than 5,000 species?
Well, we can actually, I'm not going to share a screen because it's not really a debate.
Just answer the question, yes or no?
Yeah. My question is, the amount of species we see today could have easily come, like, for example, okay.
I'm just asking you for a fucking number, dude.
A number, I don't understand. A specific number on what?
Is it less than 10,000 species got off the ark?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Easily.
Okay. And how many species would you admit exist today?
Well, we're looking at under 1 million species today.
Could they have come about without evolution being a fact?
Well, see, when I look to speciation events, I'm looking to specific organisms. Let's say birds. So birds, we'll keep it easy. Artie, if you want, you can just Google. We've got about 10 to 12,000 bird species today that exist in the world. That means if the flood was 4,500 years, that's only between 2 and 3 new bird species per year to account for the 10 to 12. Real quick. From the to account for the 10 to 12,000 bird species today. So we've got in print.
Hold on. I need to interject.
Gosh, can I finish answering one question?
No, because I need to interject.
These are
you want to go back?
Questions, and you're giving me 12 seconds to explain.
Okay, listen. I tried to get us on topic twice already.
You just asked five new questions about speciation.
I tried to get us back on
a whole hour discussion in and of itself.
Standing. I tried to get us back on the topic of the show, which is beliefs. We're talking about Christianity, not evolution. I'm great. You want to keep talking about evolution. I just want to interject that Bill Nye has done the math. If the amount of creatures that you claim came off the ark, we should be seeing 11 new species every single day. So I reject your number on the bird count, and I would please like to go back to what the actual. I would please like to go back to the original topic.
No, I'm not going to let you slap. If you slap and run one more time, this isn't worth it for me to be asked 12 questions and not have time to respond, and then you slap and run over and over again and try and go on to another question. Are you going on record by saying that you disagree with the number of bird species today, 10 to 12,000? Is that what you're saying? Because you just disagreed.
What I'm saying is that is not the topic of the show. And it's great. It's great that we're. It is great. No, it's great that we're still going there. It's great that we're still going there. What Artie asked you is a number of species on the ark, to which
mammals. Okay, give me 1 minute of uninterrupted time to respond. Mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and birds. There's only about 34,000 species. Insects make up the huge bulk of species. That's over 1 million species of insects that didn't even need to go onto the ark. When Bill Nye does his calculations, he's incorporating the insects. He's also incorporating the aquatic species, which is about tens of thousands of species. There's about 1.6 million species on Earth if you include insects, mammals, reptiles, birds. Therefore, we make predictions specifically on, let's look at reptiles, snakes. There's only about 4,500 species of snakes, only about maybe 4,000 species of reptiles. There's about 12,000 species of birds. There's about 34 species of cats. We're looking at each family. If we're saying the kind level is about the family, we're going to track that back 4,500 years and see how many species we need per year for 4,500 years. Birds, for example, they consist of some of the most species. That's why I'm trying to be gracious by going with the hardest one. When it comes to lizards and snakes,
But why are you going backwards?
Oh, here we go. So we only have 4,500 species. That's only one a year.
I'm asking for clarification.
I know when your worldview starts getting.
I'm asking for clarification. I'm asking for clarification. You go from the current number, and then try to figure out how it has to be. So it can fit the number that came off the ark. What I'm interested in is what kind of research did you do to confirm whether or not the number that came off the ark is accurate? How did you get to a certain number? Because I'm not aware of a definite number. If you ask different creationists, they will come up with different numbers. So going back and seeing if you can find a method to make everything fit your worldview, that to me is useless. What I'm thinking about is you need to have.
I don't want you to slap and run again. I know you guys are good at that. I've got a 35-page technical.
No, I'm not slapping. I'm not slapping around. I'm just reminding you. And you can talk over me anytime you want. But I'm just reminding you of the topic of the conversation, which is about a belief system, not about evolution. So I don't want to discuss evolution with you. Is that clear?
Then why did you bring Artie in here to constantly ask questions about evolution? He's the one that asked the question about the. So let me just finish my answer. I was literally done in 10 seconds before you interrupted. Okay, so if you want, I've got a 35-page technical paper here by Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, a Harvard graduate, that I can send you if you want to see exactly how we got the numbers. When it comes to the bird, I'm going with the most difficult one. Your second most difficult one is probably bats. There's only about 1,100 species of bats. So these are all easy to explain in 4,500 years. Your birds, we would predict there's about 2 to 3 new bird species per year in 4,500 years. As I said at the beginning, this prediction was made, and then lo and behold, on the Galapagos Island, we just seen documented case. I've got the paper in front of me. New bird species on the Galapagos Islands in the same way that was predicted by Dr. Nathaniel Jensen to happen, shifts from heterozygosity to homozygosity. Here's my question then to Artie, and then we can move on. If we only have 12,000 bird species on the planet today, but evolution says that birds evolved from theropod-like dinosaurs.
How many times do I have to remind you?
No, this is a math question.
I'm about to drop out because this isn't worth it for me.
How many times?
I'm about to be done asking my question.
Let him ask his
2-on-1, you guys are interrupting the whole time.
I just want to say.
Let me ask my question. Ask me a question.
Go ahead. Ask
Why do we have so few bird species on the planet today if supposedly there's been speciation events for millions of years since the evolution from theropod-like dinosaurs? Why so few bird species on the planet today? Artie, if we're seeing new bird species form today, go ahead.
I'll be more than happy to answer, and I'm again telling you that we're not talking about evolution. That's not the topic of this show. Never going to be the topic of this show unless it is announced as being the topic of the show, in which I will have a different co-host, someone who's qualified to talk about the subject.
I'm just going on record. You can go back in the video. I sat there in silence. I haven't thrown any insults. You guys are the ones that I'm not interested in insults.
Who's
you guys look at the younger
who
creation position of pseudoscience and you laugh at it. That's why you can't have a conversation that
who
is
insulted you
from insults and ad hominems. Look, I'm trying to say something, and all I can hear is mumbling in the background. Just be quiet. Let's do equal time here. Artie, answer the question.
We're not doing equal time here. Hold on.
I answered your question, then we'll move on. Or I'm dropping out. We've been doing this.
Okay, I've muted you because this is not how it's going to work. This is our show. We decide what the topic is going to be, and if you agreed to this topic, I might add you agreed to this topic a year ago. So we're going to stay on topic. We're not going to divert from the topic. So from now on, and you're still talking over me. You're still talking over me. Artie,
be really upset about it.
Artie, please be quiet for a moment because I have muted both of you. People can't hear you. So I'm going to rein this back in. Evolution is not the topic. So we will stop talking about evolution and we will start asking questions about the Bible, which is the topic of this show, which is what you standing agreed to a year ago. The fact that it took so long for you to come on and that you maybe have forgotten the topic is not my fault. This topic has been our topic for as long as we have been doing the show. And when we ask questions and you give an answer and we need to clarify a thing, we will interrupt. This is not about equal time. This is about doing a show and having a productive conversation. If you go on to a gish gallop and where we have to come back and rein you in and ask thousands of clarifying questions, then we're not going to have a productive conversation. So that's where we stand now. So the fact is, you can come back and you can pick your own topic. If you want to come back for a second show and pick the topic evolution, fine. I will make sure that I have someone here who's qualified to talk to you about that specific topic, because I'm not qualified and I'm not going to talk about it.
No,
so
I just want to go on
are we now at least
saying,
clear? Are we now at least clear that we agreed to do a show on you telling us why you believe there is a God instead of why you disbelieve in evolution? Because those are two completely different topics. Can we at least agree on that?
We can agree on the topic of the debate. I want to go on record by saying I enjoy discussion with both of you. You guys are both fine, easygoing gentlemen. It started off with you asking me questions on how I began to change my mind, how I became a young earth creationist. I went into my experience with disease, mutations, which led to discussion about mutations and evolution ultimately. I stayed silent, Peter, when you wanted to change topics. Artie asked some good questions. I like those questions. Therefore, I wanted to answer them sufficiently for Artie and for the audience. It then led to me asking him a question that hopefully he can answer, then we can move on. But I haven't deliberately tried to talk about evolution. Artie has been kind enough to ask clarifying questions about like mutations, for example, and I think it's been a fruitful conversation. I personally am not interested in insults, ad hominems. I would prefer a more civil, cordial discussion. And I have no issues with you guys. I got a little heated, but that's my take on this. I feel Artie probably agrees with my take on it. He's asked some good questions, and I've had a good time attempting to answer them. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Artie? I mean, you did ask the questions, right?
No, you're absolutely right. I'm not the least bit bothered.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not bothered. You know,
what I didn't realize was that never mind. I was unaware that you Peter had said there was a good chance that you were going to want to have this conversation, and part of what he expected me to do, which I have utterly failed at, is to try to drive you away from having this conversation, and because what I've obviously done is prolonged it, much to his consternation and ours.
It's fine. Not bothered at all.
It's not okay with Peter. He's probably not okay with it.
Peter,
Peter had a different conversation in mind.
Hold on. No one's perfect. No one's perfect, but we can at least rein it in. So my first question would be, my first question on topic would be, is why do you even think that the Bible is accurate and true?
Okay, I'm going to try and do this my best way to not ring it into evolution. My first answer was mutations and disease. I'll give you another answer that hopefully won't spark an evolution talk. I said it in the beginning, and I'm just going to say it again, just so it doesn't look like I'm trying to going off topic. I'm going to take it all the way back to the beginning. It is because when I read the Genesis account, which claims to be the history of the universe, the history of civilization. When I read that God created, for example, two human beings, Adam and Eve, because we live in 2020, I can now go look at genetic data and see if this is consistent with the Genesis account. And through intense study, I've realized that, wow, the evidence is perfectly in line with God creating two people, perfectly in line with the global flood 4,500 years ago. And most importantly, the genetic data is perfectly in line with all of us descending from 3 founding couples after Noah's Ark, being Shem, Ham, and Japheth and their wives. So it's the testable predictions as well as the retrodictions that have been consistent in my study that made me realize, wow, the Bible's claim to be the history book of the universe is true. That's
have you participated in any? I don't mean this as an insult in any way. Have you participated in any animal husbandry by any chance? You breed dogs or anything like that?
No, I'm not a dog breeder. No.
Yeah, I was just curious if you had done the experiment where you put a breeding pair next to a striped tree and see if you can get striped puppies out of it.
Right, that's actually a good point, and this is why I'd like a separate talk with Artie, because he brings up the tough questions. And that passage in the Bible, in our book, actually, that you can get online on Kindle, we discuss that chapter in the Bible numerous times and how it's referring to epigenetics. So once again, the Bible is always perfectly consistent with science, and we can discuss that particular verse in great detail.
Okay,
what line by line showing that it's epigenetic. Exactly what happened in that.
Animal?
Why not answer Artie, wait a minute. Why not answer the question instead of pointing to somewhere else? I mean, all 3 of us are here, and you're perfectly capable of answering the question. So why not answer the question instead of pointing to somewhere else? Because if you can point to just one instance where we got striped animals because they were bred in front of striped sticks, I'd be more than happy to hear about this, because that to me would be new.
Okay, so you're talking about the verse in Genesis, correct?
I am.
Right, and I'm trying to say that it is yet another example, and you can actually read a solid article from Dr. Rob Carter. I just don't want to take this direction for another 15 minutes on this topic. I'm saying that it's evidence for epigenetics, environmental related changes being correlated to that verse. My answer is it's epigenetic. If you want further detail on it, then you can read the article or what we've written in
so what you're saying is that an experiment has been done where people have bred animals in front of striped sticks and got striped offspring? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that verse that critics of the Bible try and say is inconsistent with science is actually consistent with science based on what we know about epigenetics. The exact breeding experiments he's talking about, I've never done, and I can't comment on it.
So the actual science of having a breeding pair mate next to striped sticks, that's not been done.
A breeding pair next to striped sticks which resulted in stripe patterns on their bodies?
On their offspring, yeah.
I don't believe we've done that exact experiment, no.
So it is not consistent with modern science.
Yeah, that's not something that's been confirmed by science, then, is it?
No, it's
not consistent with anything, because you haven't actually talked about the mechanism that is responsible for the change.
The same type of change.
We're talking about striped sticks.
See, I'm going to have to pull up that exact passage and read it and see how it's not inconsistent with science. My point is there's been similar types of experiments where environmental triggers such as that has resulted in epigenetic.
But we're not talking about environmental triggers. We're talking about a specific verse in the Bible that says if you breed a couple of cattle in front of a striped stick, you will get striped cattle as an offspring. And that is in
if you want me to, I'll pull up the exact verse if you want to spend a lot of time on that one. Then,
well, no, I'm just wondering if that was part of your consideration when you decided that the Bible was true.
It's about dominant and recessive alleles. Jacob's flock had dominant traits that were brought out.
Okay, was this part of your consideration? This verse, was it part of your consideration? You think that what's in the immediate surroundings determines coat?
The immediate surroundings, the environment, can be influenced by the epigenome. Yes.
Well, I'm fairly certain that you'll find that if you read that verse, It doesn't matter what else is within miles of the thing that is necessary in order to kickstart the old DNA into making some stripes.
Well, if you're familiar with like Mendel's law of inheritance, dominant recessive alleles,
I'm talking about where they have sex and what comes out as a result of it.
Right, I'm saying Jacob's flock that you're talking about here have the ability to have any coat color because of the dominance and recessive nature of their genetics, as well as the epigenetic factors that are influenced through the environment. Now, I've got a lengthy article here that I can send you if you're interested in it more.
I'm more interested in, and I know, and I'm going to slap Artie for this because we're talking about genetics again. Unless you can point me to a verse in the Bible where it specifically talks about genetics, I'm perfectly fine to talk about it.
Well, so talking about the magic of the sticks.
Yes.
Well, the Bible.
And,
well,
I don't think the Bible in that specific verse mentions genetics. It doesn't mention epigenetics. It
does
mentions.
Talk about, good point, Peter. Good point. It gives us implications as to what we can expect in the genetics. For example, the creation of Adam and Eve.
Exactly. So it gives us.
We should be able to test that claim to see if there's any validity. And yet we now know from our levels of genetic diversity, we now know from the Y chromosome, we now know from the mitochondrial DNA that we did indeed descend from just two people 6,000 years. So it's consistent. If it wasn't consistent through my diligent research, then I'd have to conclude, okay, this is either symbolic, wrong, allegory, but the science actually corroborates.
You're skipping the question. The question is, there is a claim made in the Bible. Has that claim ever been verified anywhere on the planet? Has anyone ever done the experiment to breed a couple of animals in front of striped sticks, and as a result of that, got striped?
Okay, so you want to go back to that verse?
That was the verse that we were talking about.
You were making the claim that genetics isn't mentioned in the Bible. And I'm saying by the creation of just two people, that's making a very specific genetics claim that we can test. The fact that it's consistent with that is verification
I'll take you. Okay,
of human
fine.
history. The Jacob's flock, I've already given you an answer.
Okay, fine. So tell me what happens. Hold on. Tell me what happens if you clone a person. Do they have the exact same DNA as the one they're cloned from?
Okay, so
that's a yes or no question, by the way. That's a yes or no question.
Ask the question again.
I said, if a person is cloned, does the clone have the exact same DNA as the person that it was cloned from?
A clone would have the exact same DNA as the clone it was.
Okay. Can you now explain to me how a woman can have male DNA and still be a woman?
Okay, I just want to finish because you asked about the animal husbandry and if it's been verified. So I'm going to read this passage in the article I'm referring to. Rather than being an example of superstitious folklore and fertility magic, the account in scripture is backed up by botanical and pharmacology studies, is being practiced today and is being studied in more detail. The benefits of herbal remedies compared to some antibiotics, which bacteria and parasites are becoming resistant to, is being looked into by many in the animal husbandry industry as a welcome addition to veterinary practice. Once again, the critics find the scripture teaches sound science, and more importantly, the answers were in Genesis all along.
Wow, so, you know where that doesn't fit in the least is that. Did I mention that I rent this house from the Amish and I'm familiar with the community?
I'm sure.
You never stopped using herbal remedies.
Well, since you guys want to dominate, I've given you my answer. Take it or leave it. How do you explain the Y chromosome, mitochondrial DNA?
No.
Diversity.
I'm just responding to your answer.
You don't have to be satisfied with my answer, but that's my answer. You take it or leave it.
Absolutely.
Now answer my question. So you refuse to answer the
okay, right. I should not respond to it.
I've asked what type of mechanism. What type of mechanism can remove so many deleterious mutations?
So now it's
I've asked you to explain why there's so many few species today if deep time evolution is true.
Are we back talking about genetics instead of? Are we back? Are we now back? Are we now back talking about genetics instead of talking about Bible verses? Because I would agree with Artie that you didn't answer the question. I would also say that I asked you a question which you apparently don't address at all.
Oh, no, I'll answer your question. I'm not going to start. So you asked a question as to Eve. So I'm not sure if you know, but the Y chromosome is inherited by fathers to sons, while the mitochondrial DNA is inherited from our mothers. Eve would have been XY or XX, and Adam would have been
Eve
XY.
Eve wouldn't have been XX, right? You just said so.
Eve was taken from Adam's rib, so portion of his
what
genetic
DNA would Adam's rib have? Would Adam's rib be female?
So even if good question.
That's a yes or no question.
No, it wouldn't have been female. So therefore,
okay. So
Eve
if Eve was created from male DNA, can you please explain how she is a female?
Great question. So, even if Eve was an exact clone of Adam, for example, she'd still have DNA differences within herself. So therefore, her and Adam producing offspring, there's still going to be variety. So that answers that question.
No, now, that doesn't answer that answer the second part of your question. Unless you want it does. Hold on. Time out. It doesn't answer the question until you explain how two males can have offspring. Go ahead.
Right. That's the second part. So part one, even if she was a clone, there's DNA differences within her genetics that allow for variety and not clones. Second question, God would have had to remove the Y chromosome and replace it with a second X chromosome.
Okay.
And
I agree. I agree. So where in the Bible does it say that God removed the Y chromosome?
Very good question, Peter. Very good question. So my answer is the same as earlier. The statements and claims in the Bible have very, very significant implications in genetics. Therefore, if we were to test mitochondrial DNA and it wouldn't give us evidence that we all descend from one female common ancestor, you'd have a good point, because now it's inconsistent with the claims made in Genesis. And the same goes for the Y chromosome. The fact that it is consistent gives us good reason to believe that the claims made in the human origin story of Genesis
in no way answers my question. I asked you a specific question. How did Eve become a female while having 100% male DNA?
Because the Y chromosome would have been removed, and she would have been given.
And where does it say that in the Bible, that the Y chromosome?
So I'll answer it for the third time. Maybe you'll be listening this time.
Okay,
just tell me have significant implications for genetics, where we can make retrodictions and predictions. And as we've been going for over an hour, and it's been nothing but talking over each other, I'm happy to do a round two. This was fun, but I can only do an hour of talking over each other, because then it's exhausting.
Hold on.
Movies,
we're not
agreed to an hour
over each other. We're asking you a question, and you refuse to answer the question. And that to me,
as Artie says, you don't like the answer to the question.
No, that to me is a problem, because I ask you where it says that in the Bible, then you go off to genetics, which isn't in the Bible, which we already confirmed. What I'm asking you is a specific. What I'm asking. Let me clarify my question, since you do not understand it, apparently. I'm asking you for a specific chapter and verse where it says that God changed Eve's DNA. Where does it say that in the Bible?
The specific claims, it doesn't say, hey, listen, God created Adam and Eve with pre-existing functional differences, and go into an entire science lesson on alleles and Y chromosome and X chromosomes and mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome DNA. That's just a silly question. And these are the types of questions that come from the mouths of those who don't want to have an educated discussion. I have said...
Wait a minute. That is a personal attack. I'm asking you a question because I want to understand your Bible. If you are not capable enough of answering a question about the book that you believe is the word of your God, then that is not my fault, is it?
Here's my answer, okay?
That is it my fault? Is it my fault? No, this is a simple.
Let me answer your question. If she had the
this is
same
a simple
DNA,
yes or
they
no
would have both
question.
been male.
This
I
is a
agree
simple
with you.
yes or no question. Who's
Gosh,
going
I
to
wonder
be?
why is your goal to get people to rage quit? Because
No,
I've seen a lot of
my
people
goal is
quit on YouTube.
my
I'm trying to
goal
be a nice
is
talk.
my
We
goal
had a good
is
pretty
my goal
strange
is
show.
oh man, my goal is to have people answer the questions that we ask and not answer a question that hasn't been asked, which you have been doing constantly.
No,
If I
answered your
ask you
question.
for a specific Bible verse, you will go off on a rant talking about evolution, talking about genetics, because that's your favorite topic. And in that
because
entire
genetic
rant,
data is
and in that
inconsistent with your
entire
worldview and
rant,
consistent
you
with
will
mine, so you don't
cite
wanna
not
discuss
a
it.
single Bible verse, not one.
Standing,
So why
is there-
is it that
Hey,
if
hey,
I
hey,
ask you,
here,
Artie, wait a minute, Artie, wait a minute.
Okay, let
Wait
me
a
answer
minute.
your question. Let me answer your question.
If I
So in
ask
the
you for a
Bible-
specific
Oh
chapter
my
and verse,
gosh.
why is it
In
that
the Bible, I agree with you. If she had the same DNA, they would have both been males. The
Okay.
Bible tells us, do you really need a verse and chapter that talks about how God specially created Adam
Yes.
and then Eve from her rib?
I would
You've never
need
read
a
that in the
specific.
Bible, that
I would
Adam was
need to
created
know.
specially?
I would need to know at what point Eve became female, because here's the thing, and this is what
Let
some.
me answer the question.
Here's the
Peter,
thing.
I do think it's
Here's
your
the
goal
thing.
to get people
Here's
to
the
rage quit.
thing.
I
Here's
was
the
warned
thing.
that was
Hold
your
on.
goal,
I'm
and
not
starting to
finished.
believe
I'm
it.
not finished making. I'm not finished making
I
my
ain't gonna rage.
statement.
I've never done it, and I'll never will do it.
I haven't finished making my statement. Here's the thing. I know for a fact that there are Christian denominations who do want to kill gays. So this is why this is a topic that I really want to talk about. Because I live with two bisexual women who, according to those Christian denominations, should be put to death. And unless you can explain to me how two males are the two that we supposedly came from.
Peter, I really question if you even use your brain sometimes with your questions.
Yeah.
If she had the same DNA, they would have both been males. I agree
Exactly.
with you.
And that is what
Okay,
isn't that what
I'm
the
done.
Bible says?
Okay. It's been a good talk. See you, Pete.
Isn't that what the
Are you
Bible
gonna let me
says?
finish it, or am I going to actually have to do what your goal probably is to get me to rage quit?
No,
I've enjoyed
I'm not.
Artie's
I'm not
I've
asking
enjoyed
you
his
to rage
questions.
quit.
I have no
calm.
issue.
I'm
talking to
calm and
Artie. I'm
collect.
talking to my uncle who I love, and he comes here for Christmas dinner, and we have some fun.
I'm calm.
But Peter,
I'm
you
calm
are
and
just
collect.
doing nothing.
Why
but
are you
talking
so
over
upset?
me.
Why are you so upset? Because I'm still calm and collect.
Trust me, I am not upset.
I don't want you to rage quit. I want to have a meaningful conversation.
I'm a former wrestling grappling
But
coach.
I want to have a
and I've done
conversation about the
kickboxing,
topic
and
at hand.
I've done
And
professional
all
wrestling
you
tournaments.
do is
I
talk
can show you
over
my
it.
gold medal.
All you do
I've got tough skin. Trust me, I'm not upset through a discussion.
Why is it you can't respect the people whose channel you come onto and actually have them ask you questions without talking over them? Why is that?
Peter, you're projecting. Ask your
No, I'm not
question,
projecting. Everyone who watches this can just look.
Okay.
When I'm talking,
Forget I said you're
you
projecting.
start
Ask
talking
questions
over me.
and answer
You're
the
doing it
question.
right now. You're doing it
I
right
don't
now,
want- I don't
talking
want
over
you
me.
to-
You do not let me finish.
I don't want your goal to be met for me to rage, but I know
do you
that's your
expect
goal.
me when I come on your channel to be as disrespectful as you have been on this channel? Do you really expect that?
Ask your question. Okay, I'll answer it, and then we'll call it a day.
I asked the question. Do you
go.
expect me, if I come on your channel, do you expect me to be as disrespectful
last
as you've
question.
been right here?
No, because I'm actually a good. You can go watch the discussions that I've hosted, the debates that I've moderated. I'm impartial. I'm neutral. I mute myself and I give my guests as much time as they need to make their point, and then I proceed.
Yes.
And I
but
also
we
don't
don't
bring-
we don't have a moderator here, so no one needs to be muted, right?
No, hey, I've actually had a lot of fun today. I'm just waiting for your final question for me to give an answer that you're not going to be satisfied with. I already
Okay,
know you're not.
I'll
But
skip
then we can at
everything.
least end it in a
I'll
respectful
skip
way.
everything. I'll skip everything, and I'll go to my final question. Are you an IFB?
See, this is just a question that I don't even know why it should even matter. I'm an independent Baptist.
It matters to me
I'm an
because it
independent
matters to the
Baptist.
show.
NIFB just seems like a made-up term. So the answer to your question is, according
to your buddy Pastor Anderson, it's not a made-up term. And if it's a made-up term, then maybe he's one of the people who made it up. I know that you are in fact part of the group with Pastor Anderson, with Matt Powell, which is considered to be the NIFB. So that's where I'm asking the question.
Okay, so my answer to your question, your final question, then we got to shut it down because I've got dinner to make. The kids are upstairs. The answer to your question is I am a Baptist, just like millions of other Christians.
Are you a new independent
that
fundamental
was the
Baptist?
last question. That was my final answer. Unfortunately,
yeah,
I have
that wasn't the
honor. We agreed to an hour. It's been about an hour and 20 minutes. I just asked that you honor our agreement, and then we can do this the second round that I'm looking forward to. Okay. I had a lot of fun.
Do you want to set a date and time? Do you want to set a date and time for the second round right now?
Right this second, it's going to be tough because I've got Thursday. I've got a big debate that I'm hosting. Friday, a big debate. I've got a couple debates in the next couple of weeks. We'll discuss it over email. There's no hard feelings. I enjoyed this discussion. But we can do the second round. And are you proud?
So when we're going to discuss this in email, you will hereby confirm that you will be back for a round 2?
Yes.
Definitely.
Sweet. Yeah, I have no problem. I think this has been a lot of fun. If you heard me laughing at the end, laughter is the best medicine, Peter.
I think so.
It reminds me of a Christmas dinner.
I think
discussion.
so too. But to be completely honest, then if you're going to come back for a round 2, then we need to continue this because we still have a lot of open questions. Would you agree to that?
I think this is going to be a memorable one for the audience. I will come on for a second round as long as you promise me I can re-upload this to my channel so my guests can also enjoy, because I think this has been a lot of
fun. We do allow people to re-upload it, but after a period of time. So I'd be more than happy to provide you. Yeah, I'll be more than happy to provide you with a copy, and at the time when it is okay to upload it. The only restriction is that you will not cut it in any way, shape, or form. You will post it in full.
No, I'm pretty simple-minded when it comes to the technical stuff. You send it to me, I toss it on the channel. I don't even. I'm probably one of the worst editors you'll ever meet. I've got an editor who does the editing, and there won't be any editing. Don't worry, Peter.
Okay. Well, it's a shame. It's a shame that we didn't come to some of the questions that were asked in the side chat, but. Maybe we can do that next time. I'll go over the side chat and try to find the questions, and we'll ask those questions on the next episode. So, Artie, any closing words?
Standing, no hard feelings, man. I too had a good time.
Yeah, I had fun. This was fun.
I too had other things I wish I'd have gotten to say.
We will. Let's do. And Artie, I like his questions, and if he ever just wants to come on my channel, he seems like an interesting guy to talk to. So I'm not opposed to future conversations with Artie on just maybe topics that he's interested in, dinosaurs, species, whatever.
See, Artie, you're interesting. I'm not.
Peter, you too. Peter, like I said in the pre-show, the first discussion I heard with you was with Kent himself, and it was a great discussion. I really enjoyed that one. I recommend everybody go listen. I'll probably just link the Kent discussion when I upload it.
It's one of the most viewed on the channel, the one with Kent Hovind, and I've spoken to him a couple of times last year and this year, so he might be back at some point.
Yeah, you guys should do another, because I remember you guys agreeing to do another where you were going to go. Because I think you guys talked about his side the first time.
Kent offered to come on every month. I think he wanted to do a show every single month.
That have made things difficult.
But
yeah, Kent's got some things going on.
Okay, so well, let's end this at least for now. Standing, your final words. Go ahead.
Final words. Thank you for having me on. I think it was a memorable discussion. I personally think we've touched on a lot of good things that I think people will be interested to listen to, and maybe even though there's been a lot of evolution discussions and debates out there, but I think the things we touched on may not have been touched on too much specifically on your channel. So I think it's a good discussion to have available for your viewers. And I applaud you for allowing me to come on and give me the freedom to express my views and opinions. So I appreciate it, Peter, and I appreciate your time as well, Artie.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Okay, and I want to say that if you want to do a specific show on evolution, I'll be more than happy to do that as well. And I'll get someone who at least is qualified on the topic. We'll see. I'll ask around if someone wants to.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm pretty
There's
sure.
got to be at least 3.
Yeah, three that we've had. Well, no, I think one we haven't had on our channel. Maybe I should invite the one that we haven't had on the channel already. So we'll see. Well,
Spread the love.
Yes. Okay. So standing. Thanks for coming, even though it got heated at times. I really appreciate that after a year, we finally got to do this. So I'm hoping it doesn't take us another year to come up with a second show. So,
it would be awesome if we had some, I'm still standing. Yeah.
You know what? That might be a good idea for a theme song. I have been thinking about a theme song.
I'm not sure he'd be a huge fan of your religious beliefs, but.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can disagree and still be friends.
Okay.
Well, it might preclude you using his music, but it does be funny.
And Peter,
well, I am going to shut it down right now. If you want to stick around until after we've ended the show, standing, that would be great. If you have to run, that's okay too. I just want to point people to what is coming next, and what is coming next is a really good book. We have a commercial for that. That if you're interested in the whole evolution versus creation topic, then there is a book out there. So I'll leave you with that, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye, everyone.